Have you ever felt that something or someone is missing in your life even when everything seems to be in place? The soulmate, a concept shrouded in mystery and hope, is often sought in others, in chance encounters, or in signs from destiny. But what if the true secret to attracting that deep connection actually lies within you? In this video, we explore the hidden path to finding your soulmate through the powerful lens of Carl Jung's psychology. We discuss unconscious projections, the journey of individuation, and the process of reuniting with the parts of yourself that you have lost. Deep down, a soulmate is not just someone who completes you, but someone who reveals who you truly are. If you believe that true love begins in the soul, comment, "I'm ready to attract what resonates with my essence." According to Carl Gustav Jung, the search for a soulmate is really a symbolic reflection of a much deeper process, the journey of individuation. Jung believed that each person carries an unconscious filled with archetypal images, including the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine aspects of the psyche present in all of us, regardless of gender. In this context, the soulmate is not simply an external person, but a symbolic representation of the integration of these inner aspects. When we search outside ourselves for a lost half, we are often projecting onto the other what we have yet to recognize within ourselves. This projection may be enchanting at first, but it tends to fall apart when the other person does not live up to the idealization. Jung teaches us that true love arises when we remove these projections and see the other as they really are, and above all, when we recognize ourselves without masks. The concept of the shadow, another essential idea, represents everything we repress or deny in ourselves. Until we acknowledge this part, it will continue to influence our choices, including our relationships. Integrating the shadow frees us to love more authentically, without unconsciously repeating painful patterns. Thus, attracting your soulmate begins with a deep inner dive, recognizing and integrating what has been forgotten, lost, or denied. By doing so, we stop looking to another person to be our savior or an idealized mirror, and instead build a genuine relationship where two whole souls meet, not to complete each other but to expand one another. This is the essence of Jungian love, a profound encounter between souls that have already learned to love themselves. The idea of a soulmate has traversed centuries as an irresistible myth. From Plato's Symposium to contemporary romances, we have cultivated the image that there is one unique person capable of completing us, someone who has what we lack, who heals our wounds, and ultimately gives meaning to our emotional existence. However, when this idea is not understood symbolically, it can turn into a psychic trap, fueling illusions and unconscious repetitions. Carl Jung saw intense romantic love often as a projection. When we fall in love, we do not see the other person as they truly are, but as a mirror of unrecognized inner content. We project onto the other our ideals, wounds, hopes, and even parts of our soul that we have not yet integrated. The fascination in this sense arises from the power the other person has to awaken what lies dormant within us. That feeling of knowing someone from many lifetimes may very well be the unconscious recognition of something that has always been inside us, waiting to be activated. Such projection is inevitable at the beginning of a relationship, but becomes dangerous when it remains the sole basis of the connection. Idealization hinders genuine contact, placing the partner on a symbolic pedestal where they become responsible for our happiness. This is one of the great mistakes in the search for a soulmate, believing that the other person will complete us before we have truly come to know ourselves. Romantic projection is directly linked to the lack of integration of our internal opposites. When we have not yet become aware of our own anima or animus, we look for these denied or forgotten qualities in our partner. For example, a woman who has not yet integrated her animus may feel irresistibly attracted to men who embody strength, rationality, or assertiveness, not because the other is her perfect half, but because she still needs to awaken these qualities within herself. The same happens with men who project their anima onto women who appear nurturing, sensitive, mysterious, or inspiring. Over time, reality begins to emerge. The mask of projection falls away, and we are faced with the real person, complete with flaws, limitations, and contradictions. This moment is crucial. Either the relationship deepens and grows, now based on truth, or frustration, the shattering of ideals, and often separation occur. Many then say, "He changed," or "She is not the same anymore." But in reality, what changed was the end of the illusion. Understanding the myth of the soulmate through the lens of Jungian psychology allows us to transform a fantasy into a path. Instead of passively waiting for someone to save us, we are invited to dive into our own soul, identify our hidden aspects, heal our wounds, and integrate everything we project onto others. Only then can we truly attract a genuine connection, not one based on need, but on wholeness. This does not mean that the soulmate does not exist, but that they are not found in the other in an idealized form. They are a symbol, representing the possibility of a deep encounter where two whole people recognize, challenge, and propel each other toward wholeness. Such an encounter is rare, but it is possible, and it begins when we stop seeking outside what we have yet to look within. The first secret to attracting your soulmate is to abandon the idea that they will be the cure for your loneliness. Instead, ask yourself, what have I not yet integrated in myself that I keep searching for in others? What parts of me do I idealize, reject, or ignore? When these questions are answered honestly, the love that follows will be real, because it will mirror your wholeness, not your lack. For Jung, every human being carries both masculine and feminine aspects within, regardless of biological sex. These inner forces, known as the anima, the feminine archetype in the male psyche, and the animus, the masculine archetype in the female psyche, are essential to an individual's wholeness. Yet when these aspects remain unrecognized and unintegrated, we tend to project them onto our romantic partners, creating relationships based more on fantasy than on reality. Integrating the anima and animus is one of the pillars of individuation, the Jungian process of becoming who you truly are. In this context, the soulmate is not someone who completes what we lack, but someone who reflects what we have already begun to awaken within us. True love, then, is not the search for a missing half, but the meeting of two whole people, something only possible when these internal polarities are in harmony. An unintegrated anima may appear as a seductive, mystical, idealized figure, an image of the perfect woman who inspires, elevates, and simultaneously confuses the man who projects her. Meanwhile, an unintegrated animus often manifests as a rigid, controlling, critical, or savior-like ideal of masculinity that can trap a woman in relationships where she feels diminished by the symbolic force she herself has created. Integrating the anima means allowing a man to develop his sensitivity, intuition, empathy, and connection with the emotional world. In doing so, he stops seeking these qualities in an idealized woman and begins to recognize them as legitimate parts of his own psyche. This makes him more capable of loving genuinely, without demanding that his partner be his muse, his cure, or the embodiment of his inner world. Integrating the animus means enabling a woman to embrace her rationality, her capacity for action, her assertiveness, and strength. She no longer needs a man to lead her, as she has come to recognize and embrace her own inner power. This freedom allows her to love not out of dependency or need, but through conscious choice and genuine connection. When two people who have begun integrating these inner forces come together, the relationship is profoundly different. There is space for true otherness, meaning the other can be who they are without having to play a symbolic role or compensate for a psychic void. There is love, certainly, but also autonomy, respect, mutual growth, and acceptance of limitations and imperfections. The journey of integrating these archetypes is not easy. It requires confronting prejudices, cultural beliefs, family patterns, and emotional wounds. Often, the shadow manifests powerfully in this process because in attempting to integrate the opposite, we come face to face with all that we fear, reject, or have never learned to embrace. Yet, it is precisely this confrontation that generates emotional maturity and opens the way for deep love. When we say that true love is born from the integration of the anima and the animus, we mean that it arises from internal balance. Those who acknowledge their vulnerabilities without being defined by them, who allow themselves to feel and act fully, and who navigate between the inner and outer worlds with authenticity, are ready to find a partner who does the same. Moreover, they are ready to recognize that love is not a fairy tale, but a daily construction built on truth, listening, and presence. In this light, a soulmate is not an unattainable ideal, but a real person with both light and shadow, who connects not with your lack, but with your essence. Thus, The secret to attracting your soulmate is not to desperately search for someone who fits your ideal, but to cultivate an inner balance between the masculine and the feminine. This internal harmony creates a magnetic field of authenticity that naturally draws more conscious relationships. Your soulmate is, above all, a reflection of who you have already become on the inside. And that reflection only appears when you dare to look deeply within yourself. For Carl Jung, the shadow represents everything that has been repressed, denied, or forgotten inside us. Traits, desires, impulses, emotions, and memories that for some reason we cannot accept as part of our conscious identity. Instead of disappearing, the shadow settles in the unconscious and from there influences our attitudes, choices, and especially our relationships. When we seek a partner, we are not merely following a physical or emotional attraction. We are unconsciously drawn to what resonates with our hidden parts. The person we fall in love with may very well be a mirror of what we try to hide from ourselves. And it is at this point that the relationship transforms into a stage for the unconscious to act with full force. The shadow reveals itself in relationships through intense judgments, disproportionate criticism, recurring conflicts, and emotions that seem out of control. Often what bothers us most about the other is actually a part of ourselves that we do not recognize or accept. For instance, someone who overly criticizes a partner's impulsiveness may be attempting to repress their own spontaneity, which was once deemed inappropriate. Seeing that trait in the other activates the shadow, triggering intense and often irrational reactions. Likewise, we are drawn to people who freely express what is repressed in us. A very reserved individual may fall for someone outgoing, who represents the freedom of being that they themselves do not allow. At first, this difference is enchanting, but over time it can lead to conflict if there is no awareness of what is being projected. Romantic relationships are, by nature, laboratories of self-knowledge. Emotional and physical intimacy create space for masks to fall away, defenses to weaken, and unconscious content to emerge. It is in this space that the shadow shows its strength, and that's why loving can often be uncomfortable. In deep relationships, we are compelled to confront everything we have avoided: our insecurities, traumas, fears, anger, selfishness, and neediness. This confrontation can be painful, but it is necessary. Only when we face our shadow can we break free from the cycle of repetition. Many people live through similar relationship patterns, repeating toxic dynamics with the same type of partner, the same conflicts, the same endings. Jung would say this happens because the unconscious is seeking, through repetition, an opportunity for integration. It recreates scenarios that force us to confront what has yet to be embraced within ourselves. By acknowledging our shadow, we stop blaming the other for everything we feel. We begin to understand that anger, jealousy, the fear of abandonment, or the feeling of invisibility are internal triggers speaking more about our own wounds than about our partner's behavior. This recognition does not absolve us from setting boundaries or leaving abusive relationships. In fact, it empowers us to do so with clarity and consciousness, free of guilt or unfounded accusations. Integrating the shadow is an act of courage and love. Truly loving someone means seeing them as they are, with both light and darkness, and it also allows us to be seen in our entirety. When we stop pretending to be perfect and allow our vulnerabilities to be present, love becomes more real, more human, and more transformative. That is why the shadow is not the enemy of love, but an invitation to depth. Relationships that face the shadow together have the power to heal, transform, and liberate. However, this requires that both people are willing to look within, take responsibility, and grow together rather than trying to change one another. In this sense, the secret to attracting your soulmate lies in recognizing your shadows, not as flaws but as legitimate parts of your wholeness. By integrating them, you become a more complete, authentic person, and therefore more capable of recognizing, accepting, and sustaining a love that is equally true. At the heart of Carl Jung's analytical psychology is the concept of individuation, the process by which an individual becomes who they truly are, integrating the conscious and the unconscious, light and shadow, masculine and feminine, ego and self. This path is neither linear nor easy, but it is deeply transformative. When it comes to attracting a soulmate, individuation creates the inner conditions for a truly meaningful encounter. Most people search for a soulmate from a place of need or idealization. They look for someone to bring meaning, to fill voids, to save them from loneliness, or to represent the perfect romantic love. Yet this external search is almost always frustrating, because before you can find someone, you must find yourself. The love that heals and transforms does not come from need, but from wholeness. And that wholeness is what individuation provides. As we progress on the path of individuation, we shed the masks we created to adapt to the world: social roles, family conditioning, inherited beliefs. We begin to realize that we are much more than what we learned to be. The encounter with the unconscious reveals forgotten aspects of the soul: talents, desires, wounds, and potentials. Gradually, we move closer to the center of our psyche, the self, where our deepest essence resides. It is at this point that life begins to change subtly yet radically. Different people start to cross our path. What once attracted us no longer resonates. Old relationship patterns dissolve, and a new perspective on love emerges, more conscious, mature, and whole. This is where the second fundamental concept comes in: synchronicity. For Jung, synchronicity is the meaningful coincidence of external events with internal states, without any obvious causal connection, yet with deep significance. In other words, these are encounters, signs, and situations that may appear as mere coincidences, but carry a symbolic message, as if the universe were responding to our psychic state. When someone is truly on the path of individuation, these synchronicities increase. Life seems to respond to this internal process. Many accounts of meeting a soulmate occur precisely in this context. People immersed in deep self-knowledge, healing, and transformation suddenly encounter someone who resonates with this new version of themselves, not by chance, but through synchronicity, as if the self were orchestrating the exact moment for that encounter, not before, not after, but precisely when both souls are ready. This does not mean that everything will be perfect from that point on. A soulmate is not a reward for becoming enlightened. Often, they are simply the next step in the journey, a meeting that will challenge, mirror, and further deepen the process of individuation. True relationships are powerful mirrors. They reveal both the beauty and the aspects that still need work. The difference is that when two people come together from a place of wholeness, there is space to grow together with truth, courage, and love. So, rather than searching for your soulmate externally, begin by cultivating an encounter with your own self. Ask yourself daily, what do I still need to integrate? What parts of me do I reject, idealize, or ignore? As these questions are answered sincerely, the love that follows will be real, because it reflects your wholeness, not your emptiness. The more you become who you truly are, the more magnetic you become to what is in tune with your soul. And when that encounter happens, because it will happen, you will know. Not because of the intensity of passion, but because of the depth of connection. Not by the promise of happily ever after, but through the genuine presence of two complete souls who recognize, embrace, and propel each other toward what is most sacred, the realization of being. This is the true secret to attracting your soulmate, becoming intimate with yourself and trusting that in the right time, life will mirror your essence perfectly. The real journey to finding your soulmate does not begin with an external glance, but with a deep dive into your own soul. When you understand that transformative love is the fruit of integration, the shadow, the anima, the animus, and your very essence, everything around you starts to realign. You stop searching for what is missing and instead radiate what you truly are. And it is precisely this that attracts a true encounter, one that is born from the soul and not from emptiness. If this content has touched something deep within you, subscribe to the channel now. Leave a comment sharing how this journey resonates with your own story, and don't forget to watch the next video appearing on your screen. It will delve even deeper into this path of transformation, because true love begins when the soul awakens, and yours has already started to awaken.